What is poppin'? It is a Slapton. I am but a lowly Slapton riding these DeFi waves, and with me is the man with the plan, the man without a tan, the Estonian madman, the man who was quoted in Time magazine, Rez.
Hello, it's me.
It's you. Rez, you have been quoted in Time magazine.
Yes.
I haven't
The
been
way you
quoted.
get famous,
Yeah.
main tip, shit post about Verra, and then Time magazine will notice. It's
Well,
great.
now that you have been quoted in Time magazine, how has your life changed, would you say?
Well, I woke up today and I had like 5 new followers, so that's pretty nice. A lot of clout, clearly.
That's pretty good. Only five. You have to self
Well,
promote this better.
yeah, I clearly have to shield myself harder.
And of course, you were in Time magazine for I would say, the story of the year, maybe of all time in ReFi, which we'll get
Mhm.
to. But we're not going to tell you now because that's not, we're going to tease it, right? But
Yes.
would you say it's the story of the decade, the story of eternity?
Maybe not eternity, but I definitely say it's the story of the first half of this year, maybe?
All right, that's something. All
It's
right.
something.
Well, before we get into that, what I need to tell the fine listeners of this weekly recap is that if you're looking for quality refi jobs, if you are aligned with refi, you want to work for vetted, curated jobs in the space, then I'm going to leave a link to a job board. I have it up on the screen right now. That's coming from ReFi DAO, and this is through a portal. And so, if as an example, we can see that there's jobs right here from CeeLo. We've got from Volora. We've got everything that you could possibly want. So if you want to do well and good at the same time, check out these job boards. They are, like I said, curated by people who know what they're doing. Um, so yeah, that's not a
Yeah.
shill. That's just I believe in this project. By the way, I'm
Yeah,
involved in this project.
go get some green money and do
Go
good
get
at the
some
same
green
time.
money, man.
Yeah, it's great.
So with that out of the way, let us get to the story of eternity, is what I'm going to call it. And that is the Verra press release on May 25th, 2022, that basically says ReFi is dead. ReFi is over. Go home. Get off my lawn. It's done. It's been real, Rez. I mean, it's been fun. I guess
Uh,
we turn this off. We turn this camera off, and
well,
we go burn trees.
let's put it this way. So, like, what Vera said essentially is, the current way of doing things, we don't like it. Please shut it down. And also, we're going to, in a few weeks, ask you for your opinion so we could discuss that and then do something in a few months. Is basically the summary of what they said. And um,
Well, what didn't they like? What was the part that they didn't like?
so the way they worded it was especially weird because they still, I think, avoided making any statement on what they think is the situation. Because the wording, I believe, was something to the style of retiring credits is commonly understood to be claiming the like benefits of the underlying asset or whatever. And like is commonly understood is not Vera's position is X. It's very different, right? But this is what they said, and then they followed it up with, and because of this, because it's commonly understood to be this way, not that we made a decision that it is this way, they were like, yeah, so stop everything now, and let's take a step back, and let's do nothing for a while. That's basically the vibe. But the positive part of this is they're doing something about it. I mean, if Vera actually comes out with guidance on what are the specific steps to be in Vera's good books, and what is the policy, what are the steps, what are the requirements, it makes it a lot easier to actually do the thing that we're all trying to do, which is bring actual retirement volumes on chain.
Yeah. So
Because
just so we're like super clear, I know I'm assuming most people watching this understand what's happening. Vera is no longer allowing their product to be bridged for in
yeah,
term an amount of time. We will see how long that. Everyone's kind of saying like 6 months, right? But we don't even know that, do we?
we don't.
We don't even know that. So they're saying, stop bridging and we're going to work on our solution so that you can bridge. But that solution looks like it's going to involve KYC. And it
Yep.
looks like they're going to drive that towards institutions such as banks currently. That seems to be uh, their preferred way of getting these credits on chain. Would you agree with that as well, that statement?
Yeah, big yikes for me. Also, the whole bank thing it's basically not even blockchain. It's just a distributed ledger, but it's not like a very Web3 thing that they mentioned in the Times article. I'm just like honestly a bit confused on if like people on the outside even understand the difference.
I don't understand the difference. Teach me. What's the difference?
Okay, so if you have a closed system where you just go like, yeah, we have this public ledger thing and you can check out who owns everything and, that's the whole feature, then I'm sorry, but you just basically invented a public database. And it's a public read-only database, which is not very interesting. So why you want to have stuff in like Web3 world of, people can come in and interact with your protocol and build stuff on top of it is that now you have a read and write database that everyone can interact with at the same time, which is what makes it cool. But if you just have this like small silo where you have a distributed ledger and all you're doing is just showing people that the credits exist somewhere, it's not like substantively different from just having a SQL database with a nice front end.
Okay, that's a good explanation. Here's the question, Rez, about this pertains to Klima DAO in particular. Is
Hmm.
we've seen all of these carbon credits be bridged prior to this announcement, and where not that you or I know, but would you feel comfortable in prognosticating what happens to these credits? What happens to BCTs,
Yeah.
which Klima holds a over 10 million of, I think like 12, 13, 15 million, something like that. What's the deal? Do we know what happens to them?
Yeah, this was partially the topic that the Times quoted me on at the end of the day, which is uncertainty. So, mm, before there was kind of just this tacit understanding that Verra was like, well, we're not saying you can't do it, but you can do it at your own risk, basically. While now they've basically had this position of, we don't even want you to do this anymore. Like, we're stopping you from doing it while we figure out what the correct solution is. And it's unclear right now if Verra will legitimize the supply that is already on chain when they come out with their new solution. Like, would this include just having all of the credits that have been moved in this way put into this new status of being immobilized, as they call it? Or will they just say, nope, that's its own thing now. We aren't associated. Like, we don't endorse anything related to this. Whatever. It's, we're not going to sue you, but it's not our problem, basically. Uh, so in option A, where they legitimize it, everything's fine. But in option B, it's kind of problematic for getting to the state where we all want to get to, which is adoption of these credits, finding a home in someone's carbon accounting, right?
Yeah. So the arguments that because I've been thinking about this, what will they do? Everyone's kind of trying to figure this out. The arguments I would have for them recognizing the BCTs and these already bridged credits is that Verra, as we've talked about, tends to want to establish confidence in their product, right? They like consistency. You can make that argument, right? That they're going to stand behind their product. On the other side, they did say in November that they're not going to stand behind that product necessarily.
Yep.
So I'm going to be real with you. I have no idea. Like when I see people making declarative statements about what happens to these credits, whether it's I know for sure they're going to accept them or they're going to reject them. I'm just like I really don't know.
Yeah,
I
no clue.
really don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
because there's like the one side of it where they go like, our database is deterministic. We're not gonna do any changes like this. Or they can have a million different arguments for why they wouldn't do it. Part of it might be just that they don't really want the 2008 Chinese hydro to be in circulation anymore. Stuff like this is also possibly a reason why they would say no. Why they would say yes is for the sake of, intellectual consistency, but there's nothing forcing them to do that. Like it's up to them, and I think there will be people moaning about like whichever way they go about this. So it's not like they can avoid drama.
Yeah, and the craziest thing about this is the fact that they can essentially do whatever they want. I mean, they
Yeah,
could leave these credits in a limbo in an uncertain area forever. I mean,
yeah,
then you that in and of itself, I think I think right now the problem more than even anything is that we don't know any, like the uncertainty itself is the issue,
yeah,
right? So we're already in uncertain markets, and then we add this another layer of uncertainty to these carbon
yeah,
markets, and it's
yeah.
that by itself does damage, you know.
It does. Yeah.
So
Uh,
so
Yeah, it's one part is the uncertainty. The other part is just like how they went about this, because I find this very annoying personally. So one way you could go about this would be, hey, we're stopping, but here's a proposal, here's a proposed timeline. Give us feedback. This would be like, I would accept that as like a pretty okay but drastic way of doing things. Second way is, hey, we're open for comments. Here are a few ideas from our side. Also like pretty okay. They just don't shut down like anything immediately, but there's like a round of collecting public feedback. What they ended up doing was, we're shutting it down, we're not even collecting feedback right now, we're collecting feedback in like the future, and then we're going to discuss it, and then maybe something will happen. But this is I don't know, this feels so rushed and unprofessional. I don't know what the word is. Like in a situation where you're a registry and you're almost like a Fed for carbon, uh, having forward guidance in terms of how you will behave in the future, I think is a very important feature of how these sorts of organizations should operate. So if these organizations do something very unexpected, sudden, and drastic, it's not a good vibe. I have I don't have like better words for it.
no, I think you're right. I think that's what I was trying to say. You said it more elegantly. Is Vera, I think, tries to not do things that is unexpected and
Hmm.
sudden because they are trying to be consistent and predictable, and this comes out of left field. But at the same time, does it come out of left field because they did have that statement in November that
They did,
that
but
I downplayed myself. So
same. But
yeah,
that statement was, we don't want any responsibility, which is different. They didn't really have any opinions. They were just like, if this goes sideways, we don't want to be legally implicated. That's completely fair. Um,
right. But now they
but
could claim that they basically said to us, "Hey, we told you this was going." You know what I mean? Like they could
yeah,
spin that November thing as, "Well, we told
yeah.
you we're not responsible for these credits." It's like, oh man.
Well, there's also like this second part of it, which is I think November, maybe in January. I might be wrong. They did put out a new form of KYC document to work with crypto projects. That was like something they launched. I think uh, there were some announcements around that, so that gave us at least like some sort of an impression that we're moving in the right direction, just slowly. While this is annoying, and I know that this was also a surprise for basically everyone working in the space. No one was given any advance notice of this. Like there wasn't any expectation that something like this would even happen.
Speaking of that, let's get into the response because that's a good segue. Response to Vera from Toucan. Were you able to read this?
Yeah,
What was
and
your? I mean, again, nobody knows anything. So, what was your opinion? What was their? How'd you feel about their tone and the way when they went about it? Like, what's their argument? How are they seeing it?
I long term, if you're a registry and like how this seems to be going happens, you should be very happy because you finally have guidance. This is a like a point of you should like on a organizational level be quite happy that something like this is happening. They didn't take too big of a stance towards how they did this, which I think is very diplomatic of them. But honestly, like how Verra has done this is kind of not nice. Uh, But fundamentally, I think this is good news for registry style projects in general, because having actual guidance and having it be more predictable of how Verra, behaves with you, is, much appreciated. And it also gives, green flag to all of these like corporates who are trying to figure out if they can come on chain for carbon. Currently, the answer is we're waiting and seeing because we don't have any validation. While if you get a check mark of yes, Verra now approves this stuff happening on chain, very different story.
Right. So this is always I've been saying this for a while, is regulation isn't bad. Bad regulation is bad, right? Actually,
Yeah,
regulation is good because
yeah,
it instills confidence in for people to act, and they know that they'll be in compliance. They don't have to worry about retroactive punishments, etc. So
yes.
I think I interpreted Vera's tone as that. I'm sorry, Toucan's tone as that as well,
Hmm.
which is hey, this might be good in the long term. And Toucan's in a position where they can KYC. I mean,
Sure.
their team is
I
doxed, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, and no, even like KYC. I think part of it also what Verra is looking for is the people bringing on chain the assets have to also be KYC'd. So this might be like the bridgers who actually get the assets onto their wallet, which again isn't the end of the world. Like, we have Circle, who is the one of the biggest stable coins, USDC. To bring dollars on chain with Circle, you have to be KYC'd. To take it out, you have to be KYC'd. But anything that happens on chain, go wild. That's the vibe.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm
and
torn
I
because
think
go ahead.
I think like, if the market actually needs this, great. I just hope they don't do something like incomprehensibly weird, like anything that even touches our on-chain assets has to be KYC'd, because otherwise we're now talking about contracts getting KYC'd and shit. I don't even know what that looks like. That's not good.
Right. Well, here's the I know if you want to do a bullish case for this KYC for the bridgers, you can make
Hmm.
the case that it will remove these sort of conspiracy theories of who's bridging things on chain.
Yeah.
Is it this shady TradFi trading house that just wants to move garbage credits? Like we're gonna,
Hmm.
in that
Yeah,
case,
it'll be out in the open, or at least auditable if someone like can ask in like some legal sense. I don't think this necessarily means it's supposed to be public. It's just supposed to be that if someone comes knocking and needs to investigate because we're trying to figure out like how was this money laundered or whatever. The reason why banks also do KYC is not because they like necessarily directly stop money laundering. It's because they have all of the documentation if someone actually investigates.
right?
That's part of it, right?
So they
Yeah.
could trace carbon laundering essentially. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So that's Toucan's response. Then we have Klima's response, and I mentioned Klima's in a bit of a different situation because they're not just Toucan doesn't actually hold very much of the BCT. They hold some NCT, but only like
Yeah.
$1 million worth after that last
Yeah.
liquidity pools. But Klima obviously holds their treasury is
A lot.
these it's these credits. So their fate is a little bit more tenuous in terms of like what Verra is going to do with these already bridged credits. Did you have a chance to read their response?
Uh, Parts of it,
Okay.
though, if you want to summarize it on your end, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, so it was a similar vibe that this could be ultimate, looking ahead, this could be bullish.
Hmm.
We can create these regulatory frameworks, these guardrails that could help the space. Um, but they did mention that Vera's actions were not clear. They actually did go forward and say what Toucan did not, which is that Verra has done little to engage with the on-chain carbon market. They took more of an adversarial stance. So they were very similar messages of this has promise in the future. But I think in Klima's case, they were also saying like, hey guys, would have been nice if you talked to us, worked with us. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and I think the worst part really is a lot of these. I think Klima as well as Toucan, like and Flow, and I think probably everyone else. They have had chats with people in Vera. Like, there's just never been an indication of this happening, which is,
right.
really. I mean, like, can we at least talk about it before you do something this
Right.
drastic?
Well,
Yeah.
you brought up another name, and that's Flo. And so this is the other big story: is
Hmm.
Adam Neumann co-founder Adam Neumann. Oh, I don't want to get
Cool.
to that one. We'll get to the investors.
Yeah. Okay.
So Flow Carbon has capitalized their project through pre-sales and VC, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
VCs is Adam Neumann.
Mm-hmm.
So their Series A funding, they raised $70 million. I think it was 32 million from VCs and 38 million from pre-sales. And so one of the people involved is Adam Neumann, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about him, and this was a big
Mm.
story because he has a bit of a past.
A past, yes, you
Yeah,
could call it
he
that.
has a bit of
Yes.
a past where he worked for WeWork, which was
Uh-huh.
like shared communal working spaces. What do you call that?
Co-working spaces.
Co-working spaces. Yeah. So like you and
Yes.
we're bums, right? We work
Mhm.
out of our basement. So if we didn't want to feel
Yes.
like such bums, we'd go hang out in like a communal basement, and we
Yeah.
yeah.
Communal basement with free snacks and good furniture.
Right. So he extract. I mean, I'm going to be real. He extracted money from that company. What I'm not
A
saying
lot.
I'm not saying illegally or legally. Honestly, I don't know enough. I just know for a
Yeah.
fact that he did things to make himself very rich in the process.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, even during a lot of it, and a lot of this happened when WeWork was laying off employees and doing anything to like keep going, and at the same time there was a lot of money just like removed from the company, based on what I've understood.
Right. So I don't. I'm not saying this is like a hatchet job. I'm just going to
Yeah.
bring this because this has been reported, and you have to report this. Is he extracted more than
Mm.
2.1 billion from the firm since its founding? I mean, the guy's got money. So there's two ways to
Yeah.
look at this, man. Is one is, hey, Flow is able to attract $70 million. That's great for the space, right? That's great for Flow, and 38
Hmm.
million in pre-sales is insane, and $32 million worth of VCs. Which we should be clear on this. It's not just Adam Neumann. We have Samsung, right? We've got
Yeah.
A16Z, Andreessen
Yes.
Horowitz. So that's awesome. But on the other hand, some people are saying, but we have to be wary of the people in the space. How does the Time magazine quoted Estonian madman? How do you weigh in on this?
Uh, Carbon projects, anything in the space getting money, get it, happy. But the Newman situation is a bit like worrying to me personally. I mean, I've talked with Dana and Phil. They seem like very nice people. I'm wondering from the perspective of, let's say you're Andreessen Horowitz, you're A16Z, right? Um, Knowing what we know now, what's like your conditions to give this organization money if they're associated with Newman? I, I mean, like, how do you feel safe as an investor, knowing this history? That's kind of the question for me.
Right. So I think that's what I've been bandying about in my head about this is exactly that. Is what's the level of control? What's the level of involvement of? Is he just giving money? Like, is it? Yeah, yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
question. I
Yeah, I
also
mean, like, it's very different being a co-founder compared to being just an investor, right? I mean, that seems to denote some level of involvement. So,
right.
because it's different from just accepting money.
100%. Yeah. I personally think it's good news for the space. I think it's good news for Flow. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is the way that Flow is set up. For those who don't know, is they have an SPV, a special
Hmm.
purpose vehicle, which is you can think of it almost as like an escrow.
Yep.
It's not, but you can think of it that way, where you can put certain assets into it, and you could put a carbon credit, a quote unquote live carbon credit into this SPV, and
Hmm.
it almost act as a de facto two-way bridge, which would be in compliance with Verra's current regulatory scheme, which
Unclear.
means what's
I
that?
hope I don't know. Like, unclear. I don't
Unclear?
know what. Yeah, I think because we now are in this kind of gray zone of guidance, I'm unsure if like Flow's approach of doing things is gonna get accepted by Vera right now. If
Okay.
they're already playing around with the idea of having like an immobilized state. So would a current two-way bridge of just having an SPV be enough anymore? That based on what they wrote, I have no clarity on that either.
That's
Maybe
fair.
flow carbon people. Maybe I currently don't.
That's fair. But I would say if you were to look at their structure, it would appear to me that they have a chance, like
Yeah,
a good shot of being accepted, because they're not retiring the credit
yeah,
and taking a virtual representation of a retired credit.
yeah. It's still there. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So either Flow got very lucky, or they
Same
got
boat
very
as everyone
lucky.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, just about flow. I'm happy they have money, money good, like build stuff, get credits. All of this is just very productive. And I mean, at the end of the day, if we build working infrastructure, we're gonna decarbonize the planet faster, and we should all be happy about that.
Let's get that carbon. Let's suck that carbon out.
Suck
Suck that
that
carbon.
carbon.
All right. So this relates to the first thing we were talking about. This comes from In These Times. It says if banks want to be seen as climate friendly, they need to exit fossil fuels. So remember, Verra was looking to these banks, these institutions, to be
Hmm.
the preferred entity to custody these carbon credits. But a
Hmm.
lot of people have a problem with this because these banks are also funding fossil fuels, and it seems to be kind of an irony. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think there's a valid critique in that? That this
Yes.
yes, okay, yes, just outright
I
yes.
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, why wouldn't it? If you want to be viewed as good for the environment, maybe stop giving money to oil companies. Maybe that's not your vibe anymore. Like,
Maybe
sometimes you just have to leave money on the table, and that's also fine. If it's, leaving the wrong money on the table.
you're saying that banks have to. A bank leaving money on the table is like me leaving sushi on the table. Like I'm a sushi
Fair.
fiend. Like
I
that's my
understand that.
purpose in life. Just like their purpose in life is
Yes,
money.
doing bad capitalism, right? But I mean, I think the social pressure version of it's like midway effective. Realistically, I like the EU version of doing this, which hasn't happened yet, but since everyone's expecting it, banks are behaving in a certain way, and they are assessing essentially their carbon risk or how dirty are their loans in terms of ESG. So, and then they might get a better rate from the central bank because of it. So then the incentives come from somewhere else, and we just do like good old capitalism, and the system kind of fits together a bit better.
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds like a nice mold of the two. There's still capitalism there,
Yep.
but you
We
have
just have opinions. Yes, it's opinionated capitalism.
opinionated capitalism.
Yeah.
All right. Well, by the way, does this story make you happy or sad? We need to keep track of this. This is the segment called "Is Res Happy, Res
Uh,
Sad?"
I'll go with Res Happy.
Res Happy. All right.
Yes.
G7. Oh, I know this is going to make you sad. G7 commits to decarbonizing electricity by 2035. I know how much you like your fossil fuels, so you're
Yeah, I'm
sad,
a
right?
big. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like all of this Russian gas that my country is still dependent on. I'm so happy it's around, and I'm glad we didn't make like any very realistic renewable energy investments that would get us out of this situation. Yes, carb. I am res the the fossil fuel guy. I like fossil fuels. Well, no, Ray's very happy. Get rid of fossil fuels. At the end of the day, especially in Europe, it's a lot to also do with energy security at this point. Being dependent on gas is not great.
Good.
We
So
need alternatives. And
2035, they basically said that you can burn fossil fuels, but you have to capture the
emissions, yeah.
emissions. And if you don't want to do that, then don't burn fossil fuels. So what is it? 2022. We got 13 years. Yeah, we should be living in a dystopia by then. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly. It's the thing we talked about last week, which is like we're gonna be carbon neutral by 2100, and
right.
it's like we won't be around by then.
Well,
I
bro.
can't even like, confirm or deny if you're gonna be able to do it, you know.
Well, here's the thing, dude. When I visit you in Estonia this year or next year, and we
Hmm.
go and we have like a dinner, I will like you're gonna pick it up, obviously, because it's yeah, I'm the guest, you're the host.
Sure, yeah.
But don't
Uh-huh.
worry, bro, because I will pay you back in 2035. Okay,
Nice.
all right,
Yeah.
because.
That's a good loan right there.
Right. So Res two in a row. Res happy. Temenos, which serves was it 1.2? Let me look at it. Billions. 1.2 billion. I was right. Right on the
Hmm.
money. 1.2 billion end customers is going to serve up ESG investing as a service to the 3,000 banks that they service. Res happy. Res sad.
Res happy,
Three in a
get
row.
that business.
Three in a
Yeah.
row.
3 in a row. So the thing is, I'm sure everyone has seen these ESG compliant ETFs and low carbon ETFs, stuff like this. It's very cool. But words. Let me get a word. Okay, so the thing is that everyone has to do kind of the same research over and over again about specific companies and projects, right? So it would make sense if there's like some central organization that just does the whole ESG research, and then you can go like, "Yep, that's ESG right there. I like it."
That's it. So they're
So
gonna help
yeah.
these banks offer ETFs, investment portfolios of green to their
Mhm.
customers, and they're going to be the ones that are making sure it's all in compliance. That these portfolios are in fact green and in compliance, and very
So they're like a centralized data source, basically.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating to me that this is as much as we were saying the world is going to end by 2035. These inventive solutions I do marvel at them, the creativity of what's happening. It's an emerging space of finance around regeneration,
Yep.
almost like a regenerative finance, a refi.
Almost. Yeah.
So three in a row, res happy. Let's see if we can get four in a row. Climate disclosure mandates will irreversibly transform real estate and supercharge the low carbon market. Res happy, res sad.
Riz wants to hear your summary of the article.
Okay, sure. So one of the sources of emissions, like one of the biggest
Hmm.
sources of emissions, is real estate. If think about putting up a big commercial development in a major city, you're not
Sure.
just looking at the fossil fuels being burned. You're also looking at the actual materials, how they're sourced, and the pressure being put on these companies is to have low carbon materials and low carbon methods. And one of the ways to do that is with these disclosure mandates. Are you familiar with the disclosure mandates?
No, I am not.
So in March, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission proposed regulation of climate-related risk disclosure. So it's basically saying to companies like, what
Hmm.
I think you had mentioned this just about Europe. They have to figure out like what level of risk they're at
Oh, sure.
for climate change. And so these proposals, the idea is that they will push real estate development firms and projects to adopt low carbon
Yeah,
materials.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't improve what you don't measure. So now that we're measuring it and it's all in the open, they have like more responsibility to actually do something about it.
Right. I just saw
Yeah.
40% of global greenhouse gas emissions comes from the construction sector. I am in the construction sector. I do real estate
Hmm.
investment, and I can tell you, I sometimes feel bad about the amount of waste that is created in the demolition of a property or in the
Mm.
refurb. Like it's difficult. I'll say this from personal experience because
Hmm.
what do you do with old construction material, right?
Uh,
It's tough, and you try to recycle it as best you can, but at the end of the day, some of it's going to end up in the landfill, as an
yeah.
example. And then the question is, how do you ensure that the materials that you're using in your space, like if I go to Home Depot, which I did this morning before we jumped on the call, because I have a
Hmm.
property that I'm fixing up and I have to buy supplies, I don't know where they're coming from. I have
Mm.
no idea. I mean, how do I know that that lumber was
Hmm.
sourced responsibly, et cetera?
Yeah.
Right. So, I'm a small fry compared to these people who are building up massive skyscrapers, but
Hmm.
I don't know. What do you think? Res happy,
Res
res sad.
happy.
Res
Yeah,
happy?
res happy. Like disclose everything. I mean, I think this is also a really good regulatory mechanism for making people behave in the way you would like them to, which is make them say it very out loud if they're doing it wrong.
Right.
No one wants the optics, so you just do it even if there's like no direct economic consequence yet.
Yeah, and the idea is if these things like if it's happens in mass, so these big real estate firms have to buy these materials up, then
Hmm.
economies of scale would suggest that the price of these materials would decrease. You know, there'd be incentive to create them in volume.
Yeah.
The way to source them would become more efficient, and
Hmm.
it could become. You know, I ultimately think it's going to become a little bit more pricey to buy these materials because there's going to be an extra layer of environmental sustainability built on top. But the
Hmm.
gap between, let's say, bad materials and good materials should close.
Yeah.
So, hey, good. Hey, that's 1, 2, 4 in a row. Let's go for five.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Okay.
Namibia pitches green hydrogen to Europe at Davos. The World Economic Forum is happening right now in Davos.
Hmm.
And Namibia pitches green hydrogen. What is green hydrogen? Explain this to the people at home.
Okay, so hydrogen is a fuel. Generally speaking, hydrogen as a fuel, its price correlates very heavily with the fossil fuel industry's prices because it takes quite a lot of energy to create hydrogen as a fuel. So, what green hydrogen is hydrogen that you have, what's the word, synthesized? Uh, Using green energy sources. So this would be wind, this would be solar, this would be hydro, stuff like this.
Yeah, and so the process is electrolysis. You take water H2O, which has hydrogen in it, and you
Hmm.
literally split it, and that takes an enormous amount of energy. So Namibia is saying that they can fund this with mostly renewables, which the way I think of hydrogen is a battery, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's a battery tech essentially. Yes.
yeah, it's a storage of energy that can be converted later on. Um,
Hmm.
so one thing I thought was really cool was that Namibia has in its country's constitution a part about environmental sustainability. I think it's the only country in the world that has that. So I'm excited about this tech. I'm excited about hydrogen. A lot is talked about it.
Mm.
I think if you can figure out a way to source it properly, the same way that if you can source electricity for Tesla's property or electronic vehicles property, it's great.
Hmm.
And if you're just burning fossil fuels to get the hydrogen, then you're just burning fossil fuels.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. I'm not knowledgeable enough on the hydrogen thing to understand if large scale green hydrogen is viable right now, but obviously anything that we can have that isn't fossil fuels, I'm happy about.
there you go.
So res happy.
5 in a row, Res Happy, and we have to end with this. Changeblock.
Wow.
This is their white paper. I spent a good hour reading it. Um,
Great.
but you know what, Rez? Instead of me telling the people what Changeblock is about, I'm going to make
Uh-huh.
a concerted effort to get somebody from the team to tell
Nice.
us next week or soon. What do
Uh-huh.
does that make Rez happy or Rez sad?
Res happy.
Rez
Come
is
on.
happy.
Get it. Come explain your thing to us.
Come
We
explain.
still have questions.
Chill it, and we can be super skeptical. We can like we can be like ask gotcha questions like,
And yeah, that's how you get
how do you
people to
know
be
carbon is even real? Have you
Yeah,
seen it?
I have you do you know that trees need carbon? You're basically like stealing from trees. Does that make you feel good?
Do you think that's how you get better or not? That's how you continue to get guests.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely how you continue to get
So
guests.
what you're saying is you're rugging the planet.
Rugging the planet of needed gas. Come on.
What a week, dude.
Yeah, it's been one month of a week this week. I don't know how to put it.
It's been an eternity in one week. So we have a
Yeah,
bunch of uncertainty. At the same
yeah.
time, uncertainty to me means potential, right?
Yes.
So we also have this blooming potential that these markets get regulated and friendly and more money and TradFi
Yeah.
companies move into them.
Yes.
So I don't know,
So
man.
like this, yeah, it's the whole Vera thing is definitely not 100% bad. Uh, we might have a ramp to corporate adoption a lot sooner than anyone expected. That's the bull case here. So If we would have been on this trajectory of Verra's not going to say anything and, need to find adoption, it slowly, accrues adoption over couple of years until there's precedent, and then it's fine, But now we might be in the situation of, it's just completely Verra approved in like 6 months or something, and then we can just build, and we can be certain that there will be appropriate demand on the other side. That's great. That's really great.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to the moon. Rez said it. You heard it from him. Check out ReFi job boards. Check out Rez's Twitter. Time magazine checked it out. I'll put a link of it in the chat. Above all else, though, remember to ape responsibly. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace, dudes.
And dudettes.
And dudettes. Peace.